I got some. Hopefully, I'll be able to do this without this, but right now I feel like it's easier.
Yeah.
So let's try this one. It's real simple.
All right.
Is existence arbitrary?
Is existence arbitrary? Well,
And I was joking when I said it was simple.
yeah, I figured. I mean, perhaps, but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily matter. You still exist, you know? And I think, honestly, if you sort of lean into that concept instead of being depressed by it or being maybe, conquered by it, I think it can be kind of liberating, you know what I'm saying? If you're like, existence is arbitrary, etc., etc., use that to reinvent yourself and realize that there's not so much pressure to make your existence look a particular way necessarily, and just sort of move through life as something to be experienced and, try and groove on that.
So that's reminds me of a concept I've heard called optimistic nihilism.
Yeah, certainly.
Is that kind of is that a rough approximation of what you mean?
Sure. Am I speaking close enough?
Yeah,
you're
you're
good.
good. I mean, I haven't actually. This is new equipment. So
Okay,
we'll see.
for sure.
Hopefully, it works well.
For
with
sure.
it and everything.
I've worked with audio just a little bit, so.
Okay.
Anyway,
Would this? Do you think this would work?
well, for like a mic?
Yeah, like this distance.
What's the gain on this?
Yeah, I don't know what. Do I change that knob if I want to?
So how much do you know about audio equipment?
Hardly anything.
Okay.
I'm an electronic arts student.
Yeah, so, gain, this is just the sensitivity of the microphone, right?
Okay.
This right here is essentially just the recording pattern, meaning that it is recording primarily from the front and the back, right?
Okay. So should I move it to the front, probably?
I would honestly move it to the circle right here. That means
is the
it's
circle?
going to be recording 360.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because the very front would miss both of us.
A little bit. I mean, the Blue Yeti is it's a good mic. I have one at my
Okay.
place, so
It's a pretty good one.
yeah, I'm pop the gain up just a little bit, but
Where's the high point on the gain?
so all the way up is like over here. That's
What
gonna
does
be very
what does the
blown out.
gain mean?
Gain is just the sensitivity of the recording apparatus.
Okay.
So if you have your gain really, really cranked, that person has really cool pants.
Oh, yeah.
If your gain is like really cranked,
Yeah.
that's gonna be like super sensitive. Like if you were recording like Foley work, if you wanted to like record the sounds of the bag of this,
Oh,
you'd
yeah.
like crank the gain and then you
Okay.
can like do some ASMR or something.
Oh yeah. So
Um,
this is a good level for
Yeah,
it.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if it does, if we look back at it and it doesn't
Yeah,
look good.
bro,
so-
you got this. I promise.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, man.
But yeah, I definitely vibe with optimistic nihilism as far as that's concerned. Yeah, I kind of derailed your thing there. I'm sorry.
No, dude. This is important stuff. So, let's see. So optimistic nihilism. Whenever I hear that, I always think it's kind of a hard thing to hold in your head. Like I almost want to think of the psychological concept of cognitive dissonance,
Sure.
and I'm worried that if done poorly, it could result in that. You know, because if things are ultimately arbitrary, but we attribute them meaning, and we are kind of finding our optimism in being able to do that freely. Like how do you as a person avoid feeling like you're stretched in two directions, like everything is meaningless but also this is really cool or something like that? Like how do you avoid that kind of cognitive dissonance that might occur?
Good question. I would say that I'm not sure if you can avoid cognitive dissonance. Well, no, I take that back. I'd say that allowing yourself to be pulled in different directions can open you up to new possibilities. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
In regards to how you conceptualize something like existence being arbitrary. I mean, what gives your life meaning, you know, ultimately is something either you're defining or that has been defined by others. Not necessarily in a bad way, but, you know, if we go with sort of the American idea of you know, my life is meaningful, I'm successful, I am doing this or that in a way where I'm innovating, or I don't know, whatever sort of American ideal. You know, ultimately those concepts are being defined by other institutions, even, you know, far back. I feel like I'm not answering this question very well. I'm sorry.
No, it's a really complicated question. Maybe it's not a question that's easily asked. You know, I guess because it's a strange question. I'm asking you how you avoid a psychological disorder. But you're also saying there's something about the psychological disorder that's maybe not so bad as being widened almost. And so yeah, the whole concept of being widened is certainly something worth thinking about. So you talked briefly about the kind of meaning that we derive from the world being given to us by institutions outside of us, or like, I guess that continue through history, like up to now. So is that the only meaning that's given to us? I mean, I'm sure you'd say that we also give our lives meaning ourselves as well to some degree, right?
Yeah.
What's the balance between that? Do you know, like, between what, like, these other institutions outside of us that give us meaning, or like what if you could give me like a brief breakdown of like the percentages of where your meaning comes from, like what would that, or just meaning in general at that point, like what would that look like?
Okay. Breakdown of the percentage of where I derive meaning. That's pretty heavy. I'm not sure if I could quantify that.
I don't know if it's quantifiable. I know you were. I think the reason I asked that question is because, am I correct in saying that you said meaning can come from these other institutions or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, meaning can come from all kinds of places, and ultimately it does. You know, there's not one
I guess
source of meaning.
I guess what were you saying about like the government institutions and things outside of us, like
not necessarily government.
Okay, yeah,
just like social.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be government. Yeah, just culture. Yeah.
Like, okay. What I mean by that is that if the way that somebody structures the meaning of their life, or the way they define meaning, or the way they extract value from their life, you know, a certain amount of that is going to come from cultural conditioning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Inevitably, unless you're very, very isolated. You know, for example, I would say like someone who is living within a sort of insular community, such as like a monastery, or you know, monks, something like that, across different religions. You know, your meaning of your life is going to be primarily connected to that institution. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But within that, your life is not necessarily going to be just one. You're not taking one piece of that's going to define it. You know what I'm saying? There's always going to be fracturing, which isn't bad. So for me, I would say I try and give my life meaning through my own, you know, define that for myself.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that you really have to investigate and see what is, what do you want out of life? Do you want, is what gives my life meaning becoming like, rising through the ranks of a company or something? No, not really. For some people, that's absolutely something that they strive for.
Okay, so
You know what I'm
what I'm hearing is that different people find meaning in different things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you find meaning through your particular ways of finding meaning through what you do and the things you pursue.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some like universal way of conceptualizing meaning making that applies to everyone? Is it or is it not possible to make such a claim?
I mean, you can certainly make the claim.
Okay, so it's possible, but is it like worth? Is it even like worth consideration?
Well, I'm sure that there are some psychologists out there, or psychology students who have.
Which I'm one.
You are? Oh, hell yeah. One of my homies just got his bachelor's in psychology. Hello.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, this is a club called Let's Question. I'm just interviewing people.
What up? What's your name, man?
Marcelo.
Marcelo?
I was just wondering what the hell this was.
Same with
yeah.
me. I just walked up. And I was walking on my bike over there and saw this, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Pretty tight.
It's a new club. You can look it up on Ramlink. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
And if you want to stand by, you can hop in after.
Nah, I'm just listening. Go ahead.
Yeah?
man.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we're asking about meaning making. If you can universalize it.
Mini what?
Meaning making, like
How
having
you like?
meaning in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's something that you can say that applies to everyone.
He said it was gonna be real simple, but he was trolling a little bit. No, I'm just messing. I don't know I don't know if there's a universal definition of like how somebody extracts meaning from life or how you create meaning. I say extract, but that feels a little. I'm not trying to sound it in a negative way, as like you're extracting something to drain something. Although drain gang,
It sounds like a little
blade.
bit sacrilegious, almost like maybe that word has weird connotations, but it sounds almost like you're trivializing it. If you say extract. Is that what you
Extract. Yeah. Maybe that has a bad connotation, but
mean? Yeah.
to make meaning in your life, I feel like that's gonna be a very personal thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like for me personally, it gives my life meaning to be able to experience things with other people in my life. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
something that I look forward to. That's something that I value. So in that way, I'm gaining meaning through experiential existence with other people.
So is that through relationship?
Oh, certainly. Be that platonic or romantic. Just
Yeah.
being able to connect with someone on a deep level. I'm very, very blessed in the sense that I do have very close friends that I can really relate to and talk to and trust.
That's cool.
Or whatever. So, but somebody else, like, that person over there has rock climbing shoes and some rock climbing chalk. So, like, maybe they're extracting meaning by the ability to, I keep saying extract, sorry, but
Yeah, you can say extract. If that's a word, that's. I was trying to ask you why that might have not been a good word
Yeah,
to
sure.
use. And I was basically thinking that it was something like it was like
well, it sounds predatory in a way, yeah?
it's that predatory.
I think it can.
Okay, yeah,
If,
like-
the way
yeah.
people, like, if you think about, excuse me, I don't have COVID or the flu.
No.
I got tested. I'm sick right now.
It's okay.
I'm a little under the weather. But extraction of value often relates to like exploitation. So
Yeah.
I don't want to make that connection. I'm just saying like, extraction of meaning as in
Yeah.
something measurable.
Can you extract any value or get any meaning without exploitation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. And then, like, do you think some people get meaning from exploiting people?
100%.
Is
There-
there
yeah.
something different about the meaning that you get from a relationship with someone
Mm-hmm.
than the meaning you get from exploiting someone?
Yeah, I would say so. I
what's,
think,
what's different about it?
well, certainly the power dynamic. I think
Yeah.
there's definitely people, some of which I've met and worked with in my life, where there are definitely people who they are deriving meaning from their life through their ability to have power over others, or their ability to extract certain resources from others and have power over that, i.e., in a monetary sense. For a while, I'm from North Carolina originally before I moved to
Okay.
Colorado, and when I was in North Carolina, I worked at UPS,
Yeah.
and which was a very interesting experience, certainly. But in North Carolina, without getting too heavy into economics, in North Carolina, there's something called the Right to Work Law, which basically decreases the amount of power that organized labor can have, which in turn results in a lot more exploitation. Colorado doesn't have that, so if you're going to work for UPS, work for UPS in Colorado. Don't do it in North Carolina. You're going to have a lot better benefits.
You heard it from here.
But while I was there, I saw individuals who were consciously exploiting workers for their own monetary gain and were doing quite well for themselves in a managerial position.
Yeah.
And, they were extracting value from our labor without adequately compensating us for that.
Okay. Do you think like a capitalist system incentivizes that kind of behavior?
100%. If a capitalist system overall is just, if the end goal is to make profit, exploitation will always exist if it's not checked by some kind of, oh shit, that person hit a sick ass manual. There's a person for those watching or listening, there was a person on a skateboard went by, they hit a manual for like 3 seconds going high speed. That was dope as hell. If the thing that is incentivized both culturally and legally is just creating profit, generating profit for your company, those with the power to do so, if they can, they will exploit those without as much capital in order to generate the most profit. And so that is definitely incentivized. And if it is not checked by something like organized labor, for example, my capital in society is very low, right? And so the only way for me to increase my power in a system such as this is to organize with other laborers and restrict the access that others have to that wage labor, or value, be it creatively, whatever, and basically say you're not getting this without adequate compensation. And so, people own slaves, bro. Like, people were enslaving people in order to generate profit and everything. So it's like, if they can, they will, and it's...
Yeah. And when you're
Just,
saying still, I guess, what are you referring to?
Well, certainly the exploitation of people in countries without as strict labor laws, such as often the third world, but also in America. People are... find themselves in a position of wage slavery where, yes, technically they could work somewhere else, but their options are extremely limited as far as the wages available, their ability to have social their I'm sorry, I'm getting phlegmy.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Their social mobility is limited, and therefore their power is limited, so they can't bargain in the same way, and therefore it results in, well, technically not, slavery in the sense of you are in chains. It's economic slavery. It results in the same thing where you don't have mobility, you don't have freedom, really.
Okay. What if somebody responded like as an entrepreneur,
Sure.
who, let's say, is a successful entrepreneur that was
Okay.
able to start their own company,
Okay.
and thinks that the system in place allowed him to do that,
Mhm.
or her to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would you respond to that person if they are like in support of capitalist policies because they are able to be entrepreneurially successful?
Yeah, good question, but first of all, one, you ask, where did this person get their resources in order to do that to begin with? And second, entrepreneurship is not the same thing necessarily. Well, it depends on how you're doing it, but if you, for example, created like, I don't know, a YouTube channel, right? And you're successful, you're doing all the work, you're making all the videos, you're doing all the editing, whatever pops off, your entrepreneurship in that way, you're controlling the flow of labor. You're the one doing the labor, right? You're not necessarily exploiting people, but entrepreneurship is often sort of used as a tool to justify the system at large, in the sense of like, oh, well, no, it's not all bad because look at this person over here, they're just a mom and pop shop, they're just running a business. Those aren't the people I'm talking about, right? And also, entrepreneurship is only possible if you already have capital to move into something like that. If you have the time to invest in that, which is obviously limited to your own socioeconomic status and the system surrounding that.
Okay, so yeah, there's some other factors involved.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, if somebody becomes an entrepreneur, they have to have investors.
Mm-hmm.
They usually have to recruit. They have to get people together into the same vision, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that the mom and pop shop sort of argument is
Mhm.
often wagered against anti-capitalists.
Yeah.
And you think that's kind of a dishonest argument.
Yeah.
So have
It
you
can
heard?
be.
It can be dishonest. Okay. Have you heard of like the antitrust laws?
Which ones?
So there's these antitrust laws that are supposed to limit monopoly over the market.
Yeah. Okay.
In the government at large, currently they are not being used
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I mean, obviously I'm here to ask questions, and that might be a truth claim of a kind, but
Okay.
I think it's pretty obvious that they are not being used adequately
Mm-hmm.
to break up large companies that are devouring the market.
Yeah.
So my question is, if those antitrust laws, even if they were extended and strengthened
Mm-hmm.
in order to break up bloated companies that might be participating in exploitative behavior,
Sure.
would that make the capitalist system work?
Capitalism will always trend towards monopoly. That's just that's the point. The point is to generate as much power and profit as possible, and to have as big of a market share as possible. And in the end, it's just about money. So I promise I'm getting to a point. I'm not just ranting.
That's the point.
So, you know, if somebody's like offering to, I mean, you know, look at what happened with the platform Bandcamp just recently. I don't know if you know about this. Independent music platform is recently bought by Epic Games, and then they immediately went through huge layoffs because they believed it wasn't making enough money, which is goofy as hell in my opinion. But antitrust laws definitely should be used to break up monopolies and break up conglomerates that are, you know, effectively devouring competition, etc., etc. But nevertheless, you know, the way we think about capitalism as sort of the standard of economic structure, as in like, well, of course, this is what is always going to happen. That's just the result of, you know, a couple centuries of cultural conditioning of capitalist entities. You know, it's like the feudal lords becoming mercantiles, becoming capitalists. It's like, you know, the power doesn't necessarily trickle down, so to speak. But that's beside the point. I was just in art history. We were talking about Italian stuff.
Oh yeah. So we can get into maybe alternatives to capitalism and
For
what
sure.
that would look like exactly. First, I want to ask you, like, you say markets tend towards monopoly,
Yeah.
and I think most would agree.
Okay.
But the argument that is wagered, and one that I was trying to articulate, just
It's like
you know,
with,
as a
with
question,
proper regulation.
is
wouldn't it
if
not?
if that balance could be maintained for a, you know, just consistently,
Yeah.
as to, you know, provide something like a habitable order
Yeah.
in society that produces wealth.
Okay.
Like, if that balance of devouring companies and, you know, mom and pop
Yeah.
could be maintained. And And I guess your answer to that is no. It seems, but so why not?
Greed for one. Two, capitalism is inherently hierarchical, right? Capitalism is not inherently democratic. People say that, well, you can vote with your dollar, but that's not really the case. If you're in a company, that's not a democratic system, right? Which is, frankly, kind of cringe, because if you live in a democracy, right, in which power structures are supposed to be democratic, but you spend 40 hours a week, if not more, in a system which is not democratic, where you don't have a democratic process in place, such as workplace democracy, aka organized labor, or a workers' co-op, which is a whole other thing, then you're not really truly living in a system of democracy, and therefore that system is always going to trend towards hierarchical power structures, right? So, even in countries such as the European Union, where there are better labor laws, such in Germany, in the way that labor organizations bargain for power on behalf of all laborers within a certain trade, for example, whereas in America we do it individually by business, or in France it has a similar system. Even those countries that have more limits on corporate power, or have higher corporate tax rates, so they are able to redistribute the wealth a little bit into municipal services. Even still, those countries are still reliant on these corporations that still exploit the third world. You know what I'm saying? In the Netherlands, for example, a country that has pretty solid democracy as far as it goes, it also is home to Shell, which is an enormous. There's some dogs going by with ski goggles on, like wind goggles. 3 small dogs, 2 black ones, 1 sort of tan one. I've never seen something like that, so this is a first for me. Anyway, they're still in some degree reliant upon these corporations that are exploiting the third world, or rather countries that don't necessarily have the ability to regulate entities such as Shell, because of colonial efforts to weaken their municipal strength, be that through violent action, such as what you saw in Beirut, Algiers in the 60s and 70s, etc., or Afghanistan or wherever, through the United States funding of the Mujahideen in the 70s, and then of course etc., that shit with the Soviet Union invading. So even in countries where there is better regulation of a capitalist society, those systems are still dependent upon exploitation, which sucks because they're not. They're still dependent upon a capitalist hierarchy of, boom, 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 boom. The person at the top has ultimate power. Basically, it's not democratic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So is there how would we create a society that doesn't naturally manifest itself in terms of hierarchy? Because there's arguments to be made that is a kind of biologically instantiated behavior that is in some sense unavoidable.
Yeah.
And so how would you go about avoiding that kind of behavior? It seems historically when societies have tried to do so, they end up resorting into the same kind of hierarchical behavior that oftentimes ends poorly. So how would you avoid that problem? Or is that problem something worth consideration?
It's definitely worth consideration. Any effort to reduce exploitation is noble.
Well, I guess I'm talking about the hierarchy that might be biologically instantiated. How is that?
What do you mean by biologically instantiated hierarchy?
I mean and I guess we might be skipping a few steps in kind of fleshing out that concept. But
that's cool.
It's something like, if you want to, are you an evolutionary guy? Do you kind of believe in evolution?
Yeah, sure.
And it's not for everyone, but I think most people these days believe in evolution. Through the process of evolution and just the way that we formed as creatures, because hierarchy is is kind of so deeply rooted in our kind of neurocircuitry.
Okay.
We can see in like more like primitive animals, they still form hierarchies, for example. So is that kind of behavior something that's possible to get rid of, or is it always going to show up no matter how we try to structure society?
Well, I don't believe that hierarchy is built into us from an evolutionary standpoint. I mean, a classic example people cite is like, wolves. Like, oh, there's an alpha, and, shout out, I was going to make a joke, never mind. But that's, as the original researchers who published that study were studying wolves specifically in captivity, and have since disavowed that, of like, no, that's not how packs behave. It's far less hierarchical. If it is hierarchical, it's simply because there's the parents and then the cubs. But most wolf packs behave in a manner that's not that sort of traditional idea of like the alpha and then the whatever. It's more a group effort, but that's beside the point. I don't think that hierarchy is built into our circuitry. I believe that hierarchy is instilled on us by institutions and powerful individuals or families or whatever, seeking to maintain that power. Like, I think whether or not getting rid of exploitation is possible in America, probably not, because of the amount of power that those entities hold. You know what I mean? Like, but I believe that moving towards something more akin to like workers' co-op, which is a business model. You can make a workers' co-op. You don't have to make a company. And a workers' co-op means that members of that organization vote democratically on how they want the profits generated or the wealth generated by that organization to be used, right? A fantastic example is the Glory Society, a game development workers' co-op. Shout out Scott Benson, if you know who that is. He's not like a Nazi or somebody, I promise. He's like an artist. I know I'm like shouting out people, and I'm clarification, Scott Benson's a cool dude.
Don't worry about it. As of right now, there might only be CSU students that ever watch that. So.
Well, hey, you know what I'm saying? Shout out the Glory Society. Basically, they're a game development workers co-op, and they developed the game Night in the Woods. But they also recently were developing the game Revenant Hill. But due to health complications of some of the lead developers, they voted to shut down production, and because they operated from a standpoint of only wanting to exist to support the members of their organization, whereas if they were operating within the confines of a standard company, a business model that was, again, non-democratic, they'd be like, give a fuck about somebody's health problems. Excuse my language. Can I swear on here?
I think so.
Okay. Give a frick about somebody's health problems. We're here to make money. If you can't perform, you're going to be fired. Whereas the Glory Society voted to, they're based out of Pennsylvania, I believe. They voted to, they're like, you know what? We have people with serious heart conditions that have developed. Production can't continue in a healthy way. We're shutting it down. We're going to just, continue to divvy up profits from our previous game, and not have to answer to any shareholders or investors, because we are the ones who are generating the value for our company, our co-op rather. So I think that model, if more organizations chose to do that, would definitely, look at that person, they're zooming.
Yeah, they're going hard.
There's somebody on skates. I apologize for the the kind of scatterbrained. I've been sick, so I haven't been taking my ADHD medication because I don't want to be on that while I'm sick. Anyway, I think that that's a step in the right direction to reducing exploitation and hierarchy within an economic system. Is that possible on a wide scale in America?
That's the big question.
Yes, if people are given the ability to be educated about what their rights actually are in regards to organization, and if they legally can do it. Because keep in mind, the majority of the states in America do not have organized labor laws. A right to work law, which is the name of the law that all these states adopt, including North Carolina, where I'm from, basically says that a company cannot, your employment within a company isn't dependent on membership within a labor union, which on paper is like, oh, it's, you don't got to be blah, 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 bullied into joining a union, whatever. But effectively what that does is it gives the power to the company to restrict access to that labor union, and it takes all the bargaining power away from those trying to engage in the democratic process, right? Same, with like UPS in North Carolina is going to operate differently than UPS in Colorado, even though they both are members of the Teamsters Union, which I was, of course. So in North Carolina, if we wanted to organize a strike of like, restricting our labor and say, you're exploiting us, we're not going to give you our labor until you chill the frick out. They can say, well, fuck you, we're going to hire people. Frick you, we're going to hire people.
I honestly, I think you're just representing yourself here. You're not representing CSU, so.
Oh, my bad.
You represent it however you want.
Okay, I know, I get what you're saying. I was like, okay. Right, my bad. So, will that be possible long term? It depends. It depends, because keep in mind that if you have billions of dollars, you're going to get what you want. Mm-hmm. You're going to be able to support through, propaganda, be that political advertisements, through supporting certain candidates, through supporting certain ventures, through the way that districts are drawn with gerrymandering. It's like...
Yeah. So there's a lot there.
I'm passionate about it, if you can't tell.
Yeah, of course. It's a good thing to be passionate about. So I guess I have a couple questions that lead from that.
For sure. I'm going to have to go in the next, 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah. You can leave whenever you want.
Okay, for sure.
So I wish I could ask two questions at once.
Go for it.
So, you talked about the worker co-op being a more ethical business model.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm open to that idea. It seems like we're still talking about it in terms of a workers' co-op occurring in a capitalist broader system.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to conceive of something like a workers' co-op being...
You're talking like on a national level.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like... It seems like somebody would have to lead because...
Mm-hmm.
It seems a little bit tricky to conceptualize how that would work on a large scale.
Well, you could say the same thing about government, right? You could be like, well, somebody has to lead, and we elect leaders, so, America's political system has a lot of flaws, but, on a national level, if what we're talking about is, okay, we eliminate a capitalist system, hooray, or whatever, in that scenario, people would be able to vote on how they want the power of America's economy to be distributed or to be invested, right? Which is more efficient for example third world countries. It's just going to be a better result because if you nationalize something and do it through a democratic process, a real democratic process, as in ranked preference voting for one. In America we have something called first past the post voting, which results in you can only vote one time, right? So you have a list of candidates on a ballot, you vote for one person, that votes get tallied, majority wins, but in reality, it's always going to mathematically result in primarily two candidates, right? That's not very democratic. A ranked preference voting system is where you have the list of candidates and you rank who you want your vote to go through first, right? So if I like this candidate, I think they're a little bit fringe, not cringe. I'm gonna say that they're my first preference, right? But this other candidate, they're going to be my second preference. If my candidate doesn't, my first preference doesn't get a majority to go to like whatever the next round of voting, my vote is then transferred to the next entity, right? And that, I think, if we had a system like that in America, that would be a lot better for people to actually be able to have nuance in political opinion, and we might see something
Yeah.
more akin to that. And so that
So
would be
would that resemble a workers' co-op? Is that what you're trying to
yeah,
say?
yeah, to some
Okay.
degree, yeah, on like a national level.
Okay. But there would still be like a hierarchy, right? We would just vote it in a more maybe sophisticated way.
Well, I mean hierarchy, but that would be responsible to the people who voted for them. You know what I mean? Like, I say hierarchy, as in. Well, I mean, but then again, you could change how that system worked. Like, it's not this person has all the power; they're the one dictating what's going to happen. It's more so, you know, the way that America's supposed to operate is that these people answer to their constituents. They represent the
Yeah.
political opinions of those people, right?
Yeah.
Realistically, that doesn't really happen.
Well, it sounds like you have a bit of concern that picking up on previous things you said
Yeah.
on large companies
Mhm.
being kind of intrusive
Mhm.
in the political landscape.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that just create a direct platform that conflates the economic and the political?
In what way?
If we're trying to make a workers' co-op and we're structuring it in a sort of like political way,
Yeah.
I don't know. Doesn't that mean the head or the elected officials that are supposedly representing the desires of the public who voted on them,
Mhm.
aren't they also in charge of the economic kind of system too, like the selling of what people might value and the kind of facilitating of the money in society? Like, do you think conflating the governmental power and the economic kind of oversight or supervision or something,
Mhm.
would that create the same problem you were talking about with these big companies kind of having a reach into the political landscape?
Well, I mean, if the system we're describing existed, those big companies would answer to their workers. You know what I'm saying? The power would already be democratized. And so they wouldn't be able to use their profits and power to the extent that they do in order to buy political entities. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What's up, Oliver?
What up, Oliver? I
I
don't
saw
know
your
who
text.
There's time to respond later, yeah.
But yeah.
You look busy.
you are. Hello, I like your glasses.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to get on an interview next or what?
Sure.
I'm better head out if you want to step
No,
in.
no, no.
Yeah.
Take your time. Take your time.
I've been here for like a bit.
Do you think I'll come back another day? Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want?
We
Yeah.
got the same ring. I don't have my ring on right now, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't wear my real
It's
one.
a
here.
rubber one.
I know. Yeah, I don't wear my real one out.
Yeah, I don't wear it either. It started to hurt my finger.
Mm.
Yup.
Yeah.
All right, brother. I'll let you keep going, man. Good to see you.
See you, man.
Well, listen, man. I gotta head out. Do you have any like final questions or anything?
No, I kind of understand what you were trying to articulate there with the
Mhm.
government co-ops kind of
Mm-hmm.
like democratically governing the corporations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth consideration.
For
there,
sure.
There would be follow-up questions and everything.
I'm not an economist.
Economist. I think.
Economist. I'm not an economist.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's
You know.
difficult to conceptualize of something like that operating just as companies scale up. You know, the making decisions, and it's like which decisions would need to be voted on. You know, which ones, you know, theoretically don't need to be voted on, but maybe every decision should be voted on. But then
Mhm.
things might move too slow if everything's voted on. So it's the practical implications of that definitely need to be kind of further thought through as a workers co-op might scale up into a kind of, you know, corporation that reaches more people, you know.
yeah, sure.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.